It is an honor for the Historical Association of Lewiston to have you join us here this afternoon to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Freedom Crossing dedication. 10 years we were hopeful, but no one could predict how this monument would be received, how it would impact visitors, or even our local culture. The results are in. You might be familiar with an internet site called TripAdvisor. It is the world's largest travel platform. It allows visitors and tourists to comment on and rank hotels and restaurants and other things all over the world. The comments are unsolicited, and people can say whatever they want, good or bad. What are visitors saying about the Freedom Crossing Monument? Outside of Art Park, they're saying it is the #1 thing to see and do in Lewiston. For some people, the monument is an eye-opener, and for others, it's a life-changing experience. Buses of tourists are always stopping. Underground railroad tours are constantly here. Schools are sending thousands of students here for field trips. Not counting the hundreds of unsuspecting people a day who just stumble upon this and are awestruck by its beauty and its message. In the past 10 years, this monument has become the most photographed landmark in Lewiston. Ladies and gentlemen, let's recognize that special heart that shines through. The artist who created this iconic landmark, Susan Geisler. Susan?
Hello. Well, I have to thank Lee for making what I did so incredible. for asking me to make this monument, which turned into be. It's still a very emotional thing to me to this day, and every time something like this comes up, I get verklempt. So, thank you. It's an honor to be the artist that was asked to execute this, and it'll live forever. That's nice.
10 years ago, we were fortunate enough to have a leader of the Historical Association who was transformative. She took a sleepy organization and turned it into a professional operation that had an impact far and wide. She was also instrumental in navigating us through all of the obstacles and pitfalls that accompany a project of this size. We are thrilled that she was able to join us today. Please welcome the 2009 President of the Historical Association of Lewiston, Diane Finkbeiner.
And I took a walk along the riverfront this morning. It was very early, very calm, very serene. And I stood again in front of Freedom's Crossing and was awed by its power to provoke. It made me truly think about the people who journeyed north, traveling hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 miles, often on foot, always in danger, and armed with only hope. And along the way, they were met by people that they would never met before, never meet again, who risked and defied the law, risked their possessions, even risked their own freedom to simply do the right thing. And when they finally reached this place, and you're looking at this monument, you can think for a moment of what it was like to look across and actually see freedom for the very first time. Freedom's Crossing, with eloquence and power, makes us truly understand that in this place, for the first time, the tragedy of human slavery became the triumph of freedom. And it is a testament very much to our better selves.
Joining us on this special evening 10 years ago was a fifth-generation descendant of a fugitive slave from Kentucky who was fortunate enough to make it to Canada. Today, she stands as a testament to the courage of the enslaved who risked everything to seek a new life of freedom. She is the owner of Niagara Bound Tours and has won many awards for her excellence in service and knowledge. We are proud to introduce her today as we were 10 years ago. Please welcome Leslie Harper.
It's Thanksgiving weekend in Canada, and I can't think of a better way to spend my Thanksgiving weekend than thanking God and thanking the abolitionists and all those who helped my ancestors move from slavery to freedom. I don't know exactly where they crossed over, but it doesn't matter. The courage, the faith, the hope that they had to come out of slavery and endure all they had endured is symbolized by this sculpture that sits here today that helps us all think about it. We need to think about it deeply and strongly. Our children need to hear where they come from. Black children in particular need to look at themselves and see that they come from a race that had incredible strength, that had incredible courage, and were able to rise above their horrible circumstances to make it to freedom. But I have to tell you one thing that happened after I spoke. There was three mothers and three little girls, and it really helped me to understand that what I do through my tours and talks is what I'm supposed to do. The little girls wanted to meet me because they wanted the autograph of a descendant of a freedom seeker. That's what this is all about.
Thank you, Leslie. This project was made possible with funding from the Margaret L. Wendt Foundation and Key Bank and the Town of Lewiston's Niagara Greenway funds from the Power Authority. No tax dollars were spent on this project, and in fact, this was the very first Niagara Greenway project.
I can remember growing up, my grandfather used to tell me, Josiah, giving is the only reason for living. And I tried to keep his thoughts close to my heart my whole life. Now, I don't know if it was the strong principles of freedom that our young country was founded on, whether or not it was my religious belief, or I just had a strong sense of what was right and what was wrong. Whatever it was, I got involved in the Underground Railroad, which oddly enough was neither underground nor was it a railroad. It was probably the first time in our country's history that two races came together into one human race. I can remember the first family that I helped cross over. It was a mother and her three youngins. They'd been traveling under the cover of darkness for almost 2 months. By the time they got to my house on River Road, they were so hungry and thirsty, they barely took a gulp of air between bites of food and drink. And that night, when I was rowing them across the river, there was a full moon out, and they were all huddled next to their mama like chicks around a mother hen. And the littlest boy was staring up at me with these huge eyes, just full of fear. Well, I stopped to rest about halfway across the river, and he finally worked up the courage to ask me a question. He said, "Mister, are we free?" And I said, "Son, you've been free since we crossed the middle of the river and got into Canadian water. How does that make you feel?" Well, he looked at me and thought, and I could see all the fear drain from his eyes. And he smiled, probably for the first time in 2 months. And he said, "I feel a mite less heavy."
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce you to a very special performance. James Hawkins used to be the director of a high school choir in Mississippi, but it wasn't an ordinary high school choir. No, this high school choir actually performed at Carnegie Hall and toured Europe. In 2009, the year this monument was dedicated, they won the first place in an international competition at the Toronto Music Festival. Needless to say, they became one of the most revered and admired high school choirs in the world, touching the lives of thousands with their universal message. Well, all of those high school students graduated and went on to lead their lives. But there's one thing that they did not give up, and that was their love for each other and the love of singing. So the former students of the Jim Hill High School Choir and director James Hawkins have formed the James Hawkins Chorale, which was featured in the Freedom Crossing documentary called Freedom, Risking Everything.
Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.
We got on our knees through the swamps and the trees to escape our bondage, the horrors and the shame.
We fled so fast, gazing through the morning storm, guiding us in the dark, the horrors and the storms. 1,000 miles we run to Canada, the promised land, to the freedom we sought from our oppressors' demand. Frederick Douglass told us there was a town not far away. They would feed us, protect us, and show us the way. Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.
A new future, a new life.
Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.
Just one more river to cross. To leave the pain and strife.
Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.
So we set our sights on Lewiston to meet a man named Triumph. A tailor we were told had the heart of a lion.
Giant man, his just a kindness unknown. From above, watched over our weary home. Silent rode his boat with his cargo aboard. When we touched an Indian song, we were instantly restored. With God's blessings, we were home, a place we could be free. No one's property, no one's slave, and no reason to flee. No one's property, no one's slave, and no reason to flee. Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.
A new future, a new life.
Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.
Just one more river to cross. To leave the pain and strife.
Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing, Freedom Crossing.